Dan and Corey here, welcoming you into Libservative.
The great fundamental issue now before our people. We, the people, cannot turn back.
Yeah, welcome in to another rousing rendition of Libservative, intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. Bell the Bodysnatcher on the ones and twos. He, as always, is Corey Walsh,
and he's Dan Griffin.
And we have an interesting show tonight because this is one of those weeks where, you know, Michigan played the national championship. I'm not going to play the fight song tonight, Corey, because we don't want to hurt people's feelings or get booted off of YouTube for violating somebody's copyright or whatever.
You know, we haven't yet, and we've played that song quite a few times this year because we're national champs.
Yeah, Corey's got his overpriced hat.
Damn straight I do. Look at this beauty.
Sing it. Championship gear hat. I could, but I'm not going to. The national championship that we are going to be told as Michigan fans is tainted from now until the end of time.
Actually, I know the other fans will say it, but I just saw a headline pop up from ESPN. And
ESPN loves Michigan, though. I will say this: as much of a Michigan fan as I am, they're very pro-Michigan biased. There's a lot of Michigan grads that work there. So let's take this with a grain of salt.
Well, I guess the head of the NCAA said that Michigan won their national title fair and square.
Okay. All right.
So there's going to be no asterisk.
I'm a Michigan fan. Well, there will be an asterisk in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, you're going to put your ass at risk and say that shit around me, bud.
Don't be a Walmarter.
I know.
Anyway, we're all happy here. I was hungover yesterday morning. I was up till 3:30 in the morning celebrating the victory of Michigan football. So, but we're not going to rub it in. I know a lot of our listeners probably hate Michigan football because if you're not a fan, you're pretty much a hater. That's pretty much how it goes. So yeah. We'll let you have your moment
shitty
of wallowing
loser
in your
school.
They just hate us because they ain't us.
Hate us because they ain't us.
They hate us because they ain't us.
They hate us because of an anus. Yeah. Anyway, Matt says go blue. Thanks, Matt. We love you. Anyway, we have an action-packed show tonight. We didn't do nearly enough show prep, as I was saying, because we were too busy celebrating Michigan's national championship victory. However, we do have some stuff. We're going to go over.
Real quick, I got two things actually.
What do you got? What you got? Tell me what you got.
First off, I know this isn't a sports podcast, but it's one more thing.
Oh,
have you noticed as Michigan's gained a national, more national recognition that you're seeing people calling Michigan Big Blue? Have you seen that anywhere? Because I've seen people do it.
Because Big Blue is Kentucky, so that's
dumb. I know.
I don't like
but
that.
I've seen people talking about Michigan as Big Blue, and it pisses me off.
Because that's Kentucky.
And I know they're just words, but words are making me mad.
Is that what you learned in school this week?
No, I learned in school this week that gender is like the Twin Towers. There used to be two of them, and now it's just a sensitive subject.
Is that seriously what I learned in school this week is?
No.
Well, tell the people where they can find us first before we get into our open. That was so random.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter at LibservativePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today. What'd you learn this week, Dan?
What did I learn in school this week? I learned that even with inflation and a teetering economy, particularly after people are trying to pay off their Christmas bills and all that stuff that we have going on usually every January, except maybe worse right now. Although gas prices are in a nice spot. even with all of that, we still have rampant zombie consumerism. What am I talking about, Corey? I'm talking about this phenomenon that has nothing to do with the game of hockey. You know where I'm going with this? But
Maybe.
these Stanley Cups.
Oh,
You saw this story where they put out Starbucks at the Target locations put out this like special edition like Stanley Cup mug thing. Marissa has one. She's had one for a while and she enjoys hers, but she kind of got on it before it was like super cool, I guess.
Oh, she got it before like everyone was like, "Oh my god, I want one of these."
She got hers when it was kind of like starting to make its presence known on TikTok, and it's just amazing how like social media can control our consumer the way we consume in those ways. When you have people running over each other for a fucking tumbler that is the size of my thigh. Have you seen these women on TikTok carrying these stupid things around?
No, Dad, but I've seen your thighs.
And what's next to them? These fucking things are 3 feet long. I mean, I've seen the one that my wife has, and it's just looks like a giant fucking like. What is so special about these cups other than you were told by weird, rampant zombie consumerism culture that you were supposed to buy them? I have like the old school thermos from like the 1970s that I still use on occasion to like pack hot soups and stuff for my day at work or whatever. It's disgusting. It's ugly, but it works. And I don't know. That was just what I learned in school this week. As far as like, no matter how bad the economy is, you're going to have rampant zombie consumerism, regardless of how bad things get in the post-COVID goofy economy.
Yeah, it's like the words of the very, very mentally stable and wise person, Tyler Durden, that says the things you own end up owning you.
Mm.
You know, that guy had
so wise.
Yeah, so wise, so 100% mentally stable. He did not have split personalities.
What did you learn in school this week, Corey?
About polarity reversal. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
That the Earth's poles, the North and South poles, they move way more than initially thought. Like people were thinking that they might gradually move a little bit over time and stuff like that. But apparently that they move like ridiculously amounts of spaces from year to year. And what made me think about that was like, this was something that we just thought was just grounded based fact, right? That like basic science. Found shit. That like, oh, the poles, you know, it's north, south, they're here. You could go up there and you could see it and you might see Santa. But what finding this out is like, we still don't know shit about our own Earth, and that no one should be dealing in absolutes. Because all they're doing is setting themselves up to be ultimately wrong. And if you don't force yourself to have a definitive answer, you don't have to deal with the cognitive dissonance or deal with the sour taste of eating crow. Now, why I say that is because everyone like always has to be first now with social media to have an opinion on something and run out and have an opinion before they even gathered all the facts about different things. And you can name 1.5 million different scenarios and news stories and things that have happened that have ended up turning on its head, like the one kid with the Native Americans, or Kyle Rittenhouse.
Well, hold on. Well, just extrapolate on that. You're talking about the
one kid in the mega hat who was
with
there, and the Native.
Like, it was in DC, right? And then like you had the Native American guy going up on him, beating a drum, and he kind of had a shit-eating grin on his face.
Probably because he didn't know what the fuck to do. He's like 15.
Yeah. And then,
or the Jesse Smollett story.
Quick.
You know, like those type of stories. Like, you don't need to rush out and just have an opinion to try to be right, to be on the right side of any sort of history or anything right away, or any sort of like opinion or story. Sometimes just take a little bit of pause, because here we are, you know, like North Pole, South Pole. This has just been common knowledge, you know, for hundreds of years. maybe not hundreds, but a very long time. And now all of a sudden we're realizing it's not exactly what it always was.
Well,
And it's
it's interesting you bring that up because I think that even just applies to something that we talked about just a couple of weeks ago. Like if we're in a situation, I haven't read this story, so I'm just kind of taking Corey's word for it here. But I mean, I don't think Corey bullshits us very often on this show, except for when it's funny. But it even applies to even the thing that you just mentioned about like we don't understand shit about our Earth, but we have people like Greta Thunberg out there. We have this, I guess I don't want, at the risk of sounding super right wing, this this climate agenda. Where and I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Like, how arrogant are we to think that we can just take this planet down so quickly by just simply burning shit? And now we have more and more evidence coming out with ice core samples that the rise in CO2 actually comes after the warming, which if that's true would mean that CO2 doesn't cause warming, but actually warming causes higher CO2. So, that, I mean, I guess that was just the kind of the direction I thought you were going to go with it, but I'll pick up the slack for you, Corey.
Oh, I mean, if let's be honest, like if the poles shift, does that mean the equator shifts? Hey, Dan,
I would imagine so.
Hey, Bell, real quick. Hey, Bell, Google if the equator shifts.
When the poles shift.
Yeah, because the poles shift like crazy.
Not Google, DuckDuckGo.
The poles changing has nothing to do with the equator moving because the equator is the spin axis of the Earth, which doesn't change.
Well, isn't the poles?
No, that's just a magnetic change in the Earth. The spin of the Earth does not change. Therefore, the equator does not change.
Yeah, so I understand what Bell's saying. When you have so the poles are all about the electromagnetism of the Earth, not necessarily like where the axis points are. Correct?
Exactly.
Right. That's right. Okay. I feel like I got that.
The poles move like from 99 to 2005 as much as 37 miles in a year.
Yeah, so that doesn't have anything to do with like where
No, I know that. I was just wondering if the equator shifted in general.
That doesn't have anything to do with like where the I guess you would call it the tips of the actual spin axis are. It has more to do with the electromagnetic field.
There is theories though that the Earth's axis has shifted due to climate change and glaciers
because of climate change
and groundwater,
of course,
and all that
just
stuff.
making the Earth oblong. Like,
guys, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter.
The equator has moved, but there's no proof of that. So
it doesn't matter. The Earth is flat. Like, what the? It doesn't even make a difference.
I forgot. Yeah, right. You're right, Dan. That's what I learned this week.
Bell,
listen to us trying to be like fucking scientists over here. Talking about
we're bad at it. I think I know a little bit.
I'm listening to us all just sitting here, just mumbling through this. Like, yeah, the poles, the fucking magnetic shift. It's
we do all
crazy.
Say that
it was a crazy one this year, guys.
We always say we're not experts. Bell, what did you learn in school this week?
I filled you guys in a little before the show. Yeah, freshwater snails.
The listeners don't know.
They purify the water. They're great, but they kill more people than crocodiles, sharks, and lions combined every single year. They kill almost as many people as mosquitoes do every single year. They kill over 200,000 humans every single year due to parasites and other things, and I think that's pretty alarming.
Don't drink the water.
Don't drink the water. Drink Gatorade.
Drink whiskey gingers.
Yeah. I'm personally a whiskey water guy, but yeah,
I think we're safe in America, though.
Because, like, do you
remember?
There's snails, parasites in my whiskey. No, I'm just.
You remember,
the parasites are like in Asia and South America.
Yeah, they're not in America, thank God. But
you remember the stories from like you know how like when you when you'd read Shakespeare or you would read like the story of King Arthur or anything from back like medieval times and before, right? There would always be discussions of like, why the fuck do these people drink so much beer and wine? It's because the water wasn't safe to drink.
Yeah.
The water
It turns out that maybe the freshwater snails had everything to do with it.
Where did they get water from? What's the word?
Who?
Not
The
reverse
A
osmosis.
cistern.
A cistern.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
the
don't-
copper cistern. That's why they
Yeah,
used a
they
lot of
don't- those
copper
don't
back
even-
then, because copper is a natural anti
I'd say those don't even exist anymore.
antibiotic or whatever.
Antibacterial.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's a
sir.
natural antibacterial copper. Something in it
Yeah,
just
so
breaks
they'd
down,
store water in there, and then everybody would go to the cistern and get their water. And
and then somebody pours in the water hole.
Do you think that our scientific discussion is maybe the dumbest of any podcast out there right now?
no,
Absolutely. Thank God we're not a science.
no,
No,
listen,
because we don't do
podcast.
Flat Earth podcast, so we have that going for us.
99% of the people we talk to, I'm just
Are
assuming.
smarter than us.
I would hope so, but they're just as smart as us or less smart.
Well, we're pretty average Joes over here. You know, so that
Yeah.
means that we're
Oh, but I
smarter
like to
than
think
about
so.
3.5
Don't
billion
get
people
bogged
in the
down
world.
by all the haters out
Like,
there.
I'd like to think that we're relatable. You know, like freshwater kill a lot of dudes. You know,
I can get along.
everybody else is like, yeah, 200K. That's a lot of dudes.
Don't drink the water.
In Asia,
Filter your water.
Yeah,
do
yeah.
it.
In Asia or South America. No wonder why they're all running up here towards our country. This is the snail.
Oh, Corey,
What?
our top topic for this evening is something that makes me sad, but also makes me very, very happy. Vivek Ramaswamy, as he has done so well, absolutely getting into it with the media. Regardless of your feelings on Vivek, I have my issues with him. I think Corey does too. I think Bell probably does too. This man is not perfect, but in some ways, in the small ways where it matters, this gentleman gets it right. And I know this is really going to be really easy for me to say after I play the video that I'm about to play to you. Well, you would say that. You're a white man. But just listen to what this man has to say. Vivek Ramaswamy, during, I don't even remember where this first one was from. But during honestly, what looks like a short interview in an airport, absolutely goes after the reporter that asks him what I would say is a gotcha question. Would you agree with that, Corey? Gotcha, a little bit of a gotcha question.
I would say so.
All right, here we go. Am I sharing? Is my screen up? Am I sharing this right now?
Your screen is up. I can see it.
All right, I couldn't see.
I'm not going to recite some catechism.
So, did you hear the question? The question is, do you hold on? It has something to do with renouncing
Do you
white
denounce
supremacy.
white supremacy?
Do you denounce white supremacy? Which apparently is just a question you have to ask every political figure now, from now until the end of time.
I'm not going to recite some catechism for you. I'm against vicious racial discrimination in this country. So I'm not pledging allegiance to your new religion of modern wokeism, which actually fits the test. I'm not going to bend the knee to your religion. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to bend the knee to mine, and I'm not going to bend the knee to yours. But do I condemn vicious racial discrimination? Yes, I do. Am I going to play your silly game of gotcha? No, I'm not. And frankly, this is why people have lost trust. And I know you're going to go print the headline tomorrow. I already know this. We already know how your game works. Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to condemn white supremacy because you asked a stupid question. The reality is, I condemn vicious racial discrimination in this country, but the kind of vicious and systematic racial discrimination we see today is discrimination on the basis of race in a very different direction. You want to know what the best way is to end discrimination on the basis of race? Stop discriminating on the basis of race. Do that, and we're going to move this country forward. And I don't care whether you're black or white or brown or anything in between. That's how we're going to unite this country. You people have been responsible for dividing this
What do you
country.
mean, you people?
Creating a projection of national division. I meet people from the south side of Chicago to meetings like this one of every shade of melanin, multiple from man to woman, doesn't make a difference, who are hungry for reviving unity in this country. And you, with your catechism that you try to get to politicians to whatever fake headline you're going to print on the basis of this conversation tomorrow, that's what's dividing this country to a breaking point. Shame on you. Look people in the eye and tell them what you've actually failed to tell them for the last 5 years. Own the accountability for your own failures as the media. That's how we rebuild trust in this country. And until then, I don't have a lot of patience to play the games.
So that is, I don't know who this broad is on our.
It's for BetterHelp.
Right, so
it's not an ad endorsed by Libservative Podcast.
So, yeah, it's not. I'm gonna say this. I have. Is it playing right now?
I don't know. I don't hear it.
Oh no. Oh no, we're good. Anyway, what I was gonna say is this. I have issues with Vivek Ramaswamy's foreign policy. I have issues with.
It's like milk toast.
It's pretty much just like I'll tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna sit down Xi Jinping. We're gonna sit down Vladimir Putin. We're gonna tell him this is how it's gonna be. Like that's pretty much Vivek Ramaswamy's foreign policy. I have other issues with him.
I guess that would be my foreign policy. I'm just gonna talk to him. Let's see what they have to say. Pour up some vodka.
We're gonna sit him down. We're gonna tell him that American hegemony is great. But I'm sorry, like Vivek Ramaswamy is, to me, he's a guy that he's basically well-articulated Trump. Like everything that Trump wanted to say in a well-spoken way and couldn't in 2016 and especially in 2020, Vivek Ramaswamy actually does. Like what are you doing? So seriously, like what is your agenda? If you're a reporter and you catch Vivek Ramaswamy at an airport, I don't know where the hell this was. I don't really care. I just loved his response. And your first question is like, do you denounce white supremacy? Like, what a stupid fucking question to ask any politician in 2024 who is training you to do your job. Because Vivek Ramaswamy's response is, I denounce any sort, I don't remember what his exact words were, but basically any sort of discrimination based on race. Yes.
Yeah. Any sort of vicious racial discrimination.
Go ahead, Bill.
What if I ask him that question and that's the exact answer that I'm looking for?
It should be the exact answer that you're looking for, because that's what happens, right? So you come at somebody with, do you denounce white supremacy? And Vivek Ramaswamy responds with, I denounce any sort of discrimination based on race, or whatever the hell it was that he said, any sort of vicious discrimination based on race, or hate based on race. And like, it's not a good enough answer because you have to denounce just white supremacy. But my thing is like, does white supremacy not fall under the answer?
I was just going to say he did denounce it.
He absolutely
in his
did,
answer, he did denounce it.
But that's not what they're looking for. And they're playing this, they play this, the media plays this game where you have to denounce just white supremacy. And if you do, if you say, if Vivek Ramaswamy were to say, of course, yeah, I absolutely denounce white supremacy. Well, now, white supremacy based on what definition? White supremacy based on the definition that white supremacy means that because I'm white, I believe that I am superior to any other race? Like, is it like the real simple definition of what white supremacy is? Because I don't know a single politician. I don't even know a single human being in my realm of friends, family, or acquaintances that supports that definition of white supremacy. Or is it the DEI definition of white supremacy? And which we're about to get into here in the next video, where like just being punctual, just showing up on time is somehow white supremacy. Just little things like that within the DEI way of talking. And that's what Vivek Ramaswamy meant in his response, where you're trying to catch me in a gotcha situation, and I'm not going to play your fucking game. I'm sorry, dude. Like, I have respect for that, for his response for
his answer. Yeah, he doesn't have a bad one because he gave them the answer they wanted, but he didn't give them the
the answer they wanted.
Salacious that they wanted, yeah. In a true political fashion.
And he was absolutely right. Like they were going to go out and say, Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to denounce white supremacy. Because he didn't literally say, I denounce white supremacy. And we're going to get into it here in the next video of there's a reason that he didn't do that, because he just wants to know what the definition actually is of white supremacy.
Right. Is it some inbred hick in the deep south sitting there just in his house sharing dumb shit on the internet with a swastika flag on the wall?
Right.
Or is it someone that's trying to reinstall black and white drinking fountains and shit like that? You know what I mean? Like, they're both technically white supremacy, and you denounce both of them. But I don't know. I lost my train of thought on this when I just immediately started picturing some fucking inbred hick. But
that's right, because that's what you think of when you think of white supremacy. When somebody in this weird DEI lexicon thinks of white supremacy, they think of just like you showed up on time for work and made your black colleague look bad. I'm not kidding. That's actually part of it.
Yeah, I know. No, you know, like to me, like white supremacy, it would just be the remaining different institutionalized things like gerrymandering and redlining and like discriminating at the polls based on like things like driver's licenses and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's pretty presumptuous to assume people not having a driver's license is racist.
Right. Yeah, like things that are real. And the way that they do this is I think an absolute slap in the face to the civil rights movement, to people like Martin Luther King, who I believe he actually said at one point, I could be wrong about this, but I believe he actually said at one point, I might not make it through this with you. Meaning like I might not make it to the end of this civil rights fight with you. Obviously he did not, unfortunately. But I just look at like what white supremacy means to these DEI goofballs. And I want to just present that to like the ghost of Martin Luther King and say, tell me how you actually feel about this. I think he would be fucking appalled.
Probably.
I really do.
We've gotten to. Yeah. Because like, yeah, it's frustrating, right? Like it's like I obviously, I'm stealing the words from Camille Foster. I want to live in a world where no one should have to find pride or shame in their race, sexual orientation, their creed, their religion, or anything like that. But when you turn it on its head and you spin it around, and because, like, let's be honest, white people really fucked up a lot of things over the last 100 or so years. I don't think anyone here disagrees with that. But now you're using this generational guilt on people who had nothing to do with Jim Crow laws, nothing to do, I mean, except for people like Biden, who had anything to do with these different, like, racially motivated laws, whether out of fear or whether out of a feeling of some sort of supremacy. Most of everyone denounces all of that, but then now it's flipped, you know, and you know, you got white people getting a taste of their own medicine, and you get things like white privilege. And I'm not even saying white privilege isn't true. Any majority in any country is going to have any sort of privilege over when you look like anyone else who's the majority in your country. You're gonna have a privilege than the outliers who don't fit in. Like if I go over to Japan, people are going to be looking at me because I don't look like everyone else. There is a privilege that happens to anyone.
It's this weird DEI idea, though, that like American whiteness has this unique evil to it. And I understand if I understand there are going to be certain people who hear me say that and go, well, it's really easy for you to say, Dan, look at you, you're white. It's really easy for you to say. I'm like, okay, I guess, but
you're doing the same. You're doing the same fucking thing you're pissed off about when you do that.
Yeah, but like exactly. And why? It's like, am I supposed to just not say it? Am I supposed to just not say? Am I supposed to just keep my mouth shut?
Yeah, just bend
Because I'm
over and
white?
just take it.
Yeah, I don't.
Stop resisting and just comply.
Yeah, like the cops would ask you to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like it's just, oh wow, like saying I have white privilege. That's a pretty broad brushstroke to immediately give me some, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm jaded about it because I really don't know where my privilege is, short of actually like just blending in with everyone else. Ooh,
yeah. Do
cool.
you use so Ibram X Kendi would come to you and say that you have white privilege,
and I'd acknowledge it, and I'd say it the same way I said it to you.
No. But here's the thing: I don't think you have any problem with me throwing this out there. I think you've probably said it before. Like, you've lived in a fucking trailer park for a long time. You know,
I grew up in a trailer park. Reduced lunches, free lunches.
You and your family have had certain issues throughout your childhood, and so and I did too, not quite to the degree that you did, but we've all had our issues, right?
Yeah.
You think Ibram X Kendi has the problems that you have? This motherfucker who lies at BU and just makes up shit makes up falsities to keep a job in a DEI program. Robin DiAngelo, you think she has ever experienced anything close to what you've experienced? And that's not even to say that like your life is shitty, because it's not.
Right.
But it's
because of my white privilege.
It's just so it's just so interesting to hear these folks that push these DEI agendas. They're always the ones that are actually the ones that are privileged. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, a lot of elitists do it. And that's what's frustrating. Because because of all of my black friends and all of my black family, they don't push that shit. It's always elitists at the top that are pushing the narrative about stuff like this. We need to have representation, so we're going to get more elitists in there who I have more in common with my black coworkers and my black friends than I do than any fucking white person at the top. Does that make sense? Like when we talk about, you know what I mean? Like when we're talking about like relations and things like that and privilege and stuff like that, regardless of race or any sort of privilege I might have as a poor white boy from the suburbs of Detroit, I have more in common with the people that I'm supposed to have privilege over than I do the people who look like me, who I'm supposed to have the same privilege as, who are sitting at the top,
tell you that you have privilege,
who tell me I have privilege. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's that is the kind of, that is the right there. What you just said is the reason Vivek Ramaswamy gave the response that he gave to that bullshit reporter who, and I don't know anything about her. All I heard was her voice. I don't know what she looks like, but I can deduce based on the question that she asked him.
She's probably white.
She definitely is white. If she's not, sorry. But she certainly has and has had more privilege than you or myself, regardless of the color of her skin. And that's why coming up with issues of privilege based on the amount of melanin in your fucking skin is ridiculous. Does that mean institutional racism or historical racism isn't a thing? Does that mean that because you grew up in this country in the 40s, 50s, and 60s as a person of color, that you weren't somehow at some point left behind? No, it doesn't mean any of that. But Vivek Ramaswamy's point is this: if you took a picture of today and you could somehow revive people from the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King and others, and show them a picture of today, what do you think they would say? I think Martin Luther King would look at today and go, man, you know, it looks like it's not quite there yet, right? It's not quite perfect yet, but my God, is it better than it ever was before? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, no, we got a lot of work to do, but like I think we can acknowledge how far we've come.
And that's the problem with DEI, right? It doesn't want to acknowledge any of the progress that's been made since the civil rights movement. And I personally find that offensive, but being a white guy, I guess that doesn't matter, and that's fine.
Yeah, you share those white grievances for another day, bud.
But I feel like people like Martin Luther King would certainly look at that and go, "You're full of shit."
Yeah, it's just frustrating, you know, because we get so bogged down with all the haters out there. No, I'm just kidding. We get
Don't get bogged down.
We get so bogged down in all the minors and all these little things.
Don't get bogged down by all the haters out there.
Like I just can't.
George.
We're getting caught up on, you know, like I said the other week, minoring on the minors and majoring on the majors. We're doing the exact opposite and majoring on the minors and minoring on the majors. And they just keep the different sects of people divided on stuff through the narratives and stuff in the media, when a large swath of us, regardless of the color of their skin, are struggling. And they just, I don't know. When we always say they, it's like Tucker Carlson. Who are they?
Who are they?
Yeah. But the, you know, the media narratives, the pundits and all of them, they throw out these different catchphrases and different things. And all it ultimately does is just keep people divided at the bottom. Forcing people to recognize race is not the culture that goes with it, or not the person behind the color of their skin. Just focusing on the color of people's skins isn't going to unite people.
Yeah, it's the Coleman Hughes, and I love Coleman. I can't believe that man is less than 30 years old, because he is fucking brilliant. When he talks about color blindness and people hear color blindness, oh, what do you mean? You don't want to recognize culture? You don't want to, it's white supremacist to talk about color blindness. And I love Coleman's point where he essentially says,
you're talking about the TED Talk that they pulled down, right?
Not necessarily that, but just like his worldview. And he talks about color blindness more, to me, more as a matter of policy, not as a matter of culture. So it is perfectly fine to be culturally proud of your Black heritage, culturally proud of your Latin heritage, culturally proud of your Scottish heritage, your Irish heritage, right?
Go ahead, say white heritage, Dan.
No. Because I really don't believe that. I really don't believe that white heritage is a thing. I think that's silly.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. It's
but
there is no attack on it either. There's no attack on it either, right? Because like you just said, we still have St. Patty's Day. There's still Italian people waving their Italian flags, Italian pride. Italians
it's so
love
funny,
putting
go back 100 years.
Italian flags in the back of their cars.
Go back 100 years. There was a debate over whether or not Italians are white. What are they today?
They're white.
What is an Italian today? I would consider them white. I think a lot of people would consider them white. So like that's just another realization of like how we've come so far with race relations, and the DEI crowd just has to keep it alive because it's a racket. I mean, Ibram X. Kendi makes a shit ton of money running around telling white people how fucking racist there are. Ibram X. Kendi is a fucking moron. I have no problem sitting here on my show and telling you that. He's an idiot. He's a dipshit. He's a grifter.
Okay, that's the word I was going to use, grifter.
He's a racial grifter. He's a race-baiting grifter. Fuck Ibram X. Kendi. Just
like now, I'm not putting them necessarily in the same basket, but there are grifters on the white side who are catching the lowest common denominators of society, like Fuentes.
Absolutely. Nick Fuentes. I mean, this is more misogyny based, but like I would put an Andrew Tate in that fucking category. Like, people are just pieces of shit because they're pieces of shit.
Yeah. And it's frustrating. And like this is something that's given me a little bit different perspective with having a son. You know, like I can bear this brunt, you know, growing up. You know, we grew up at a much more simpler time. Like racism was way less of an issue when we were kids than it is now, even.
That's because white people controlled everything, Corey.
Yeah, sure. But
I'm just fucking with you. But
I mean, because you're still technically not wrong. You look at the statistics of like black-owned businesses and stuff like that. Like they definitely still don't get the fair shake. And I get that that's where the idea of white privilege comes about. But the guilt that they try to put on people based on past grievances of generations, years and years and years ago, how the fuck am I supposed to look my son in the eye and say it's your fault?
You're not.
You know what I mean?
You're
But like,
not
that's what
supposed
the
to do
DEI
that.
and the stuff is like pushing to make you fucking tell them.
Well, and then you don't get a lot of help from like the anti-immigration angle that you see coming from the right. So
The right doesn't help this conversation at all.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. It doesn't at all. It doesn't at all. And like that doesn't. Yeah, and we talk a lot about like free speech and supporting certain aspects of the right, but like one of the things that is an issue here is like the immigration angle.
To cut you off, I'm sorry, but I think that's why we bring Vivek up, because he articulates this actually.
He does really
pretty well compared to like Nikki Haley, who's like, "Oh, why was the Civil War fought?" Well, that's a complicated question.
No, it's not. It's not a complicated question.
It's not, Nikki Haley.
She could have answered that question so easily. All she had to do was say this. I don't know how you can possibly be a presidential candidate in 2024 when why was the Civil War question brought up and you're a Republican. If you're a Democrat, it's a really easy answer. You just say slavery. If you're a Republican,
they say, we wanted slaves. The Democratic Party wanted slaves.
Oh, yeah, we wanted slaves.
Yeah, we wanted slaves.
Because the Democrats were the ones fighting for slavery. But all you have to do if you're a conservative and you don't want to just be like, oh yeah, it was fought over slavery, and you want to have like a more nuanced answer, all you have to do is say that it was a war fought over states' rights. Yes, that was built around the right to own slaves,
own other human beings. Yeah,
like that was the top catalyst for starting this war. There is no way to argue that for starting that war. There's no argument against that. No. Was it fought over other things as well? Yes.
Yeah, there were other grievances,
but the catalyst was the ability to keep the economy at a higher rate by owning slaves.
The states did not want the federal government to tell them what to do in their states. And
that meant not own slaves.
Yeah, owning other people.
Anyway, let's get to this last video.
Then you'll get people. I shit you not, I've had someone who like claimed to be a libertarian go, well, the government didn't even need to get involved. The cotton gin was invented. It would have made slavery just irrelevant.
Right.
It's like, okay, so yeah, but it's about the moral high ground on that one, I guess.
Let's get to this other video from Vivek here. I thought that because he had this weird interview where somehow he had two interviewers from NBC talking to him, and he was answering very similar questions to the first video that we played.
People asked me even last night, will you denounce white supremacy? We live in a moment where, don't forget, a lot of the left has defined white supremacy to include things like punctuality or the written word. This is just as of a couple of years ago. Even many in the DEI Academy, in academia and otherwise, have said concepts like this are vestiges of white supremacy. These words have ceased to mean anything. And so if somebody wants to define white supremacy for me, then we can actually have a serious conversation about it. But until then, I think a lot of this is actually a charade. I think Steve King was defeated in part because of a donor establishment that used a toxic influence on money and politics to be able to disfavor him. But this is somebody who I believe is a patriot. I'm proud to have his endorsement. I'm not afraid to say it. And I think that that's what makes me different than a lot of the other candidates.
Let's talk about what white supremacy and what happened last night for a moment, because when you were talking to reporters last night, you called white supremacy a myth. When someone asked you about Dylan Roof, you said you didn't know who that is. Have you looked up what happened in 2015?
Yeah, look, I said this last night. Invidious racial discrimination is wrong no matter how it happens. But if a Washington Post reporter is asking me almost like a catechism, whatever question I said, I'm against invidious racial discrimination, whatever form it takes, it says, do you denounce white supremacy? it's incumbent on us for us to define what white supremacy is. I wrote my book, Woke Inc., and I've written about the detailed understanding of what the popular understanding of these terms have come to mean. Do you believe punctuality is a vestige of white supremacy, Dasha?
So you think you know Wix, but do you really?
Played an ad on you, and I can't hit skip.
Oh,
Ooh.
If you don't, then you have a disagreement about many of the people who are defining those terms, or the written word, or the use, or the nuclear family. These aren't my words. These are the words of intellectual proponents from Ibram Kendi to the Ayanna Presleys to BLM that have said these are vestiges of white supremacy. So
Mr.
we can't have it both ways.
What you do, though.
We have to have
You
an
choose-
honest
you choose
discussion.
Straw man arguments.
Last
Last night you brought up Jussie Smollett as the best
Jussie
example
Smollett
of white
was the hottest thing in news in the back of a fake actual attack on him that we have to contend with.
And yet you have examples like the Buffalo shooter in New York just in 2022.
You have other
but
examples.
you are also cherry picking when you bring up Jussie Smollett.
I'll look at all of the statistics. More black on black crime. If you really care about actual crime against black Americans, let's get to the root causes of it in the inner cities of this country.
The Anti-Defamation League tracked a 38% increase in white supremacist propaganda last year.
Who's tracking that?
The Anti-Defamation League.
Yeah, the ADL, I don't think is a particularly credible source
so
when
who
they have
are we
a cherry
supposed
pick
to look
information.
to when we're talking about
I would suggest look at there's a table, 2x2 table, a federal law enforcement data, which you could say what you do. Maybe we shouldn't believe that either. But look at black on Asian crime, black on black crime,
the FBI
hate
crime statistics. That's a law enforcement agency. 59.1% was based on race, ethnicity, and ancestry, saying hate crimes rose 12% between 2020 and 2021.
Look at the absolute crimes themselves. What they classify as a hate crime is itself a political judgment. I think that when you actually care about protecting life, if you want to say Black Lives Matter, let's look at where Black lives are actually being lost. It's in the cities at the heart of other Black Americans and criminals.
That's absolutely an issue that we talk about as well. But are we supposed to ignore white supremacist hate crimes?
We're not supposed to ignore any kind of crime, Dasha. That's what I say. But what I see is a selective reporting. Take the Nashville Transgender Shooter Manifesto. Every shooter manifesto in a mass shooting has been released within 48 hours, except for that one shooter in Nashville. Now, it ended up being leaked. What do you see? It wasn't a white supremacist. It was somebody that was actually making fun of using derogatory terms. I believe.
So why are you okay talking about that manifesto and not talking about the manifesto from the 2015?
I'm more than okay talking about both. But what I'm asking is, why is the mainstream media suppressed that one? Why did the police suppress that one? Why was that the one shooter manifesto that of all of the mass shootings, every other shooter manifesto has been released? I'm focused on that one because that's the one that's been hidden from us. And it comes back to the point of my candidacy and the way I'm going to run this country. Trust the people with the truth.
So I'm gonna stop it there.
That's a good face.
I'm gonna stop it there because this is a pretty good face. But I'm gonna stop it there because it should be so obvious.
Yeah, so that's another thing that pisses me off about him is not pisses me off, but it's like he loses me because he loses the plot. He makes a good point, but then he jumbles it into a bunch of things and moves through stuff really fast. If that makes sense.
He does do that, but I guess I was more disturbed at the way the reporter conducted this interview. When you're gonna sit there and you're gonna accuse Vivek Ramaswamy of cherry picking things. Why don't you talk about this one? And then he basically comes back with, well, because I want to talk about this one, when he's talking about the mass shooting stuff. And then the gotcha question about Dylan Roof. So I actually thought about this. You know who Dylan Roof is, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
I'm sure Bell does as well. When I first heard that question,
pencil neck, prick.
I just simply forgot who he was. But when it was mentioned, he was the Charleston shooter. He was the guy that shot up the black church. Okay, now I remember who it is. Oh, you don't remember who Dylan Roof is? Oh, so because I for 1 second or just in the midst of a conversation,
you didn't know his name.
Forgot the name of a mass shooter. Like if you had mentioned
America does have a lot of them.
So if they had just reframed that question of the Charleston black church shooting, I would have known exactly what the hell they were talking about. But because he didn't, the name of the guy who conducted the shooting slipped his mind. Somehow he condones white supremacy. What?
Yeah, it's a pretty big leap.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
When he reiterates over and over again that he denounces all violent crime and all racism and all like vicious viciously racially charged attacks and things like that, that should be good enough.
It's not good enough.
That's wild.
See,
isn't it?
my whole thing is, how do you conduct an interview and then not even let a dude answer? You
No,
just
the way
interrupt.
The way she conducted this interview was unbelievably unprofessional. This is not what journalists are supposed to do.
No.
If you want to ask him a hard-hitting question, absolutely, that's your job. Go
But let him
for it.
answer it. Don't
Let him
interrupt
answer
him
it.
when he's answering it.
But this is and like
It's
this
like
is
they're
the kind
afraid
of thing,
someone's gonna say something too much on their show that they got to cut them off real quick. I don't.
Yeah,
get
you
that.
can't
I don't
have-
understand that.
you can't have. Go ahead.
We just have all these journalists that are just trained to try to fit everything into half hour, 15-minute, 5-minute, 2-minute segments.
It's not only that, but like this injection of your worldview. This is not what journalism is supposed to be.
No.
Journalism is not supposed to be an injection of your worldview. Like if I had, like, let's just say, and we're not even journalists, Corey. We're not even journalists, Spell. But let's just say we had, I don't know, some communist on our show that we would vehemently disagree with. We don't support communism on this show. You and I don't think communism works. But you would give that person the respect to at least let them answer the fucking question we asked them without injecting our worldview. Now, we have more of a discussion type show, so we would probably have a discussion with this person, but we would at least have the common decency, if we ask them a question, to let them fucking answer it. And you have people like this dumb broad at NBC that can't even allow a top presidential candidate to answer a question. And I'm sorry if you find the term broad derogatory, but I'm a little pissed about this one.
If it was a guy, I'd call him a dick. So I guess it's okay. It's douchebag. If it was a guy, I'd be a douchebag.
So call her a dick. Don't assume her gender.
This douchebag.
Man.
But
that was tough to watch. I'm not even gonna lie. That was tough to watch.
Yeah, it's brutal. That's NBC right there. That's what they do.
yeah, like a good journalist just makes a little symbol or makes a little note on their notepad while the person's talking so they don't lose that little pin and that thought.
Yeah.
And they save it.
And it's not to say that, like, let's just pretend for a minute that, like, somebody like Laura Ingraham had, I don't know, AOC on her show.
And just shout her down the whole time. I'd be just as pissed.
I don't want to make this seem like this is like an NBC, sort of liberal side only thing. I have a feeling Laura Ingraham would do the same thing to AOC. She would try to play these conservative gotcha games. And it's just
a Jesse Waters.
Just so Jesse Waters would be even worse because Laura Ingraham, as much as I can't stand her, is remarkably smarter than Jesse Waters.
Jesse Waters would probably be 10 times worse than this chick.
You are absolutely right. Jesse Waters interviewing somebody like AOC.
I cannot believe he got the Tucker Carlson thing, because even though Tucker Carlson was a bit of a blowhard and he did kind of the same thing, he let people talk. Actually, he just looked like he was smelling their farts the whole time.
Tucker Carlson is worlds smarter than Jesse Waters, because you know why?
That's why they got rid of him.
Carlson, exactly, because Tucker Carlson, and we've talked about him multiple times on this show. I have vehement disagreements with him, but as he has come independent, I have been more willing to listen to him because he's more willing to actually say how he feels. And I still feel like I have vehement disagreements with him, but I respect Tucker Carlson way more than I ever did when he was at Fox News. And I respect Tucker Carlson way more than I respect this dumb, idiot, short-haired white woman who's trying to call a brown guy out for white supremacy. Did anybody else see the irony in that?
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I did see the irony. I was going to mention that, like, she can't outright say, God damn it. He can't outright.
A hat doesn't quite fit right yet, does it, Corey?
No, it does. I'm just putting it backwards.
You got to break it in.
This hat ain't getting broken in. You see the back
What's
of
going
it
on the
too?
wall?
It says National Champions.
Yeah, mine's gonna. I'm never gonna wear mine. It's gonna go up on the wall.
Got to wear it a little bit.
Anyway, it's time to end the show.
I know, right? Let's try to make sure we save some of these topics for next week.
Do you want to do? Do you want to do a quick polls here? And the only reason I'm going to say because I think this is going to actually be pretty quick, because I said this before we started the show, Corey. I think that this primary season is going to be the most boring primary season we've ever had, but the general season is going to be the most toxic season that we have ever had. Because I'm sorry, dude, like, I don't even know why I'm apologizing to you. I guess I'm just sorry in general. The American people are so fucking sick of this shit. And we're so lost and we don't know where to turn next. And I'm just going to give you a quick anecdote before we go into the polling for this season while you pull that stuff up. Bari Weiss interviewed the newest Democratic contender for the primaries, Dean Phillips, a representative out of Minnesota. I listened to the entire interview. I enjoyed it. I have vehement disagreements with him on certain things because he is a little bit too establishment in some ways, but also very anti-establishment in other ways. And I think having more guys like Dean Phillips, or girls, even I'll take Marianne Williamson too. It doesn't matter. That are willing to challenge the primary system. I am all for it. But Dean Phillips said something that got to me a little bit within this interview. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, because it was this morning that I listened to it. I don't remember exactly what he said. You can find it when you're done with the show here. Honestly, with Bari Weiss. Not a sponsor of the show. I just enjoy it. So go check it out. He said something to the effect of, if you're this disenfranchised, as so many Americans are, then you need to vote in primaries to change it. And you can't complain when things don't go your way if you don't vote in the primaries. Again, paraphrasing. And I heard what he said, and I thought, yes, but that's only part of the equation. It's only part of the equation, because the other part of the equation is the system that allows a first past the post primary system that is going to make it remarkably difficult for a guy like Dean Phillips to defeat Joe Biden in the primaries. And not to mention the fact that a couple of states that he mentioned in this interview, North Carolina and Florida, just made it. The Democratic parties of North Carolina and Florida just decided we're having one name on our ballot.
God, I love democracy.
What is that name going to be? It's going to be, of course, it's going to be fucking Joe Biden. That's not democracy, Corey.
What?
That's not democracy.
What? But that's just the way things are, Dan. That's how our country operates.
So I guess
the party gets to choose who their primary is going to be.
I'm going to sit here and I'm going to pay a little bit of attention to Dean Phillips's campaign.
I'm just trying to be a doofus devil's advocate, and you're not even biting.
No, I'm not going to bite, because you're first of all, you're just joking, and second of all, even if you weren't, I would say that you're full. I would say that you're full of shit. But I'm going to pay attention to Dean Phillips's campaign. I'm going to be interested in what he has to say, because I did agree with a lot of what he said in that interview. You know, a lot of it was recognizing that the duopoly of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party is a major problem. But then out of the other side of his mouth, he said that if he doesn't win this primary, he's going to support Joe Biden because he believes that Donald Trump is this existential threat to democracy, which is something that you and I have made fun of. Like, how many times do we have to hear this before we realize that it's just some bullshit establishment talking point?
So much that they're not giving anyone any other option but Trump or Biden.
Yeah, and like you like don't sit there and tell me that you're this advocate for democracy and then talk about Trump being an existential threat. To his credit, I'm actually upset with Bari for not asking this question. At least I don't think she did. I don't remember. I could be wrong. Again, I'm speaking on something that I heard 8 hours ago and only heard once, but I don't believe she asked him about Trump being pulled off of ballots and whether or not he thought that was good. But it just seems like Dean Phillips's run for president seems a little bit flat to me. Like he seems like he's going in saying a few of the right things, but also not 100% in to stopping the duopoly. Because if you're going to say if Biden gets the candidacy, he'll support him. So I don't know. I think I just ranted for about 5 minutes there, so I apologize.
That's all right, buddy.
We got some polling.
Yeah. So I got some 538. I got 538 and Real Clear pulled up. You said you like Real Clear, but all I'm seeing right now is just basically just Trump v. Biden. In Michigan, this is a good one. Today, a poll came out from Detroit News. Trump in Michigan, Trump beats Biden 47-39. And so the reason why we're doing this right now is we want to create just a baseline. As you know, it's January 10th. We got an election coming up in November. A good barometer of where the country's at now, because we got a lot of things coming up. Because like right now, we got to make sure we talk about it next week. The border crisis is starting to stem because Biden is now basically doing what Trump did and help making Mexico be involved. And now Mexico is sending back immigrants that are coming to their southern border back to their other countries. And one of the reasons why they're doing that is because we're lifting sanctions on Cuba and Venezuela. And so we're doing some stuff down there to try to mitigate that. The Venezuela thing kind of piggybacks off that because we're working on getting cheaper oil. And then I have a prediction, actually. I didn't bring it up last week. I have a prediction that marijuana will probably be descheduled before elections so that Biden can say that he did that too to make everyone happy. Because he's scrambling. He's fucking scrambling. So the reason why I bring that stuff up is just to add context, because these polls are going to obviously change throughout the year. But as January 10th, 2024, in Michigan, Trump beats Biden by 8 points. And then Trump v. Biden v. Manchin v. Stein versus Mapstead. I don't even know who Mapstead is or Stein. Is that Jill Stein?
Jill Stein, yeah. Yep.
Is she running for the Green Party?
Yes.
Oh, is she?
I'm almost positive she is. Yeah.
So who's Mapstead? Is he Libertarian Party? Did they pick a
No, that's oh God. Michael Rechtenwald. That's the Libertarian candidate.
Okay, so who's Mapstead?
I have no idea.
The No Labels Party or the what's the other one? The People's Party or something like that?
Something that doesn't matter at this point.
What's his face up to? Who was the guy that was in the Green Party, left the Green Party?
You talking about Cornel West?
Yeah, Cornel West.
Yeah, I don't know.
In Michigan, Nikki Haley versus Biden. She's up by 10 points. In the general election, yeah.
Dude, that surprises me.
Yeah.
I mean, it surprises me in like, not in like I'm an appalled way. I just didn't expect to. I didn't expect. Guys, she is just so full of shit. She's such a neocon. I can't stand her.
I know.
Go for it.
In the general election, from an economist, YouGov, Trump and Biden are tied both at 43. In Pennsylvania, Biden beats Trump by 3. In Pennsylvania, when that's
the thing, right? So let me stop you right there just for a second to make this comment. So you said that in Pennsylvania right now, this is according to 538 or Real Clear? I guess this doesn't really matter.
A Quinnipiac poll.
Quinnipiac?
Quinnipiac.
So Biden beats Trump by 3 in Pennsylvania right now. Dude, that's within the margin of error. Like you shouldn't be comfortable with that.
No.
In any way, shape, or form.
In Pennsylvania, another Quinnipiac poll. Trump versus Biden versus Kennedy versus West versus Stein. Biden's up by 2. It goes Biden 41, Trump 39, Kennedy 11, Stein 4, West 2.
And this is where?
In Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
In the Senate, McCormick versus Casey. It's Casey 53, McCormick 43. Casey was the Democrat, right?
I believe you're right. I could be wrong. I don't know. It's fucking.
An Emerson poll, Nevada versus Biden. Trump's up 2. In Nevada, Trump versus Biden versus Kennedy versus West versus Stein. Trump's up 3. In New Hampshire, Biden, Trump, Kennedy, Manchin, West, Stein, Mapstead. Biden's up 8. In the general election from the Morning Consult, Biden's up 1. Listen to this. It's a primary, but the 2024 Vermont Republican primary, Trump is up 28. In the Vermont Democratic presidential primary, Biden's at 72. Virginia, actually, between Trump and Biden, chooses Biden. General election.
DC, bro. That DC constituency right outside of DC. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of goes back and forth depending on where you're looking. And then I also brought up some 538 polls because I thought these ones were interesting. So as of yesterday, Congress's approval, according to The Economist, has a 62% disapproval rating.
I'm color me shocked.
And then they did another one through YouGov, or the pollster was YouGov, the sponsor was Economist. And I don't know what the RV stands for, the sample size. And then the A sample size, but one was 1,400 people, the other one was 1,500. And that one is 56% disapprove. Joe Biden approval to The Economist, sponsored by The Economist, done by YouGov, is 57% disapproval.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and then he has another one is a 53% disapproval. This one, I don't even know who this is, but it's Rasmussen. The pollster is Rasmussen, but the sponsor is Miranda Devine's laptop from hell. I don't even know what the fuck that means. I'm assuming it's Hunter Biden's laptop, but that's who it's sponsored by, and that's a 57% disapproval. Supreme Court approval. So this one's interesting. Supreme Court approval between with a poll conducted between January 7th and January 9th of 1,400 people. 45% approve, 46% disapprove. But then when it's the YouGov Economist of the like the other poll they did, 43% approve, 42% disapprove.
That seems about right.
Right.
Because it almost brings me back to like the one of the things Vivek Ramaswamy said when we earlier in the show, where he's like basically stop judging based on race if you want to stop being racist. Like I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure that's a Brett Kavanaugh quote. Like if you want to stop racism, stop being racist.
Oh, really?
And that's just kind of how I feel. It's just kind of how I feel about the Supreme Court.
I was thinking about that as this episode. Like we leaned this episode really into like white privilege and race and things like that. And I don't want to give off the impression that we're some like right wing doofuses that are crying about like how we're the oppressed race now and we're the ones being attacked. I think stuff like that.
Corey, I think
and that's not it at all. It's the fact that like we know racism exists and we know that it's real, but it just gets so diluted that it's sad, because then when real racism happens, for example, in a story we're going to talk about next week with the 200 and some people buried behind a prison in Mississippi in Jackson. You know, like a black guy gets hit by a cop car and they go and bury him in the prison cemetery and his mom's looking for him for 6 months. Like this shit happens.
And we're going to talk about that.
This shit's real.
No, Corey, it's what we've talked about multiple times. It's the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah.
Like stop.
It frustrates me. It makes me mad. It really
makes
does.
me mad too, Because then when real racism comes out, you look silly. Like you look like when you claim that everything is racism. And then there's real racism. Well, now the people that you were trying to convince that everything is racist and laughed at you, now you're giving them more and more fuel to sit there and go, "Oh, well, you told us racism was this big of a problem based on this statistic and this amount of things. Why do I have to listen to your thing that's actual real racism?"
Yeah, and that's really what it is. Like, it's maybe like, and I have to even say it, like, you know, like I have black family and I have black friends, but
you have to say it.
Yeah, I get but because, and it's not just I'm not using that as like the back step, like, whoa, I'm not racist, I have black family and black friends. The reason why I hate when the bullshit racism, anyway. The reason why I hate the bullshit racism stuff is because I've seen real racism affect my family, and I care about them. And I want to see that bullshit end. And what you're doing with your white knighting is mudding up the conversation. Well, I'm trying to make sure that my family and everyone just stays safe.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much what I was going to interrupt you and say. So you said it for me.
Yeah, no, I separate the curds and whey. You know what I mean? Like the cream from the crop and all those different little sayings. Like, fuck it, just stop. Not every. Well, and
that's
thing is racist.
that was kind of Vivek Ramaswamy's point, right? In that
I think so, and that's why I understand what he's saying. But like,
it's like stop. You ask the question of whether or not I condemn white supremacy to catch me doing something, not because you actually want to hear that I condemn white supremacy. So why should I answer your question? Because the answer is like, it's just such a, I'll let you go in a second, but it's like, it's just such a dumb question. It's like, we all condemn white supremacy based on the actual definition of white supremacy, but that's not why they're asking the question. Right. They're asking the question to catch him in something. And that's why the part that pisses me off.
Maybe that's why he pisses me off, because he does have substance to some of the words he says, but he's so arrogant and confrontational when he says it.
He's Trump.
That
he's better spoken Trump.
So his message is lost. He's losing the message. And it's no different than the activists that we see today that just do ridiculous things like pour blood on a Van Gogh, or go and try to literally turn off the fucking valve to the Enbridge oil line in the Straits, which could blow up, which could make it blow up. Yeah, like that kind of shit. You're completely diluting your message with your arrogance and your cavalier attitude and your confrontationalism, if that's even a word. But so you understand what I mean? Like
no, I mean, I guess the
medium is wrong. The message is there, but the medium is wrong.
I guess
you're trying to win, but but he's running for president. He's not doing this to get your and I's like agreement or approval. He's trying to get 335 fucking million Americans to vote for him.
Corey, I think you would be surprised though at how many people's approval he would get by doing it like that. And so I'm actually going to push back. I'm going to disagree with you on this. And I think that's maybe some of what our listeners want. I'm going to disagree with you on the arrogance factor that you just brought up. I think that is I think that's important. And I'm going to say why. The reason I think it's important that he does it in that way is because that's how the fucking media treats the people like him when they ask him those questions. And I feel like when Vivek Ramaswamy answers the question the way that he answered it, yeah, he's a little bit of a dick. That's fine. I'm a little bit of a dick too. I'm sure you'd agree, and I'm sure that my all of our listeners would agree. Dan's a little bit of a dick, but sometimes you need to be a little bit of a dick to get through, because he could have gone really fucking short and gone, well, you know, I'm not going to answer that question because I feel like it's a gotcha question. But
But then he wouldn't have
does-
got the soundbite. He wouldn't have got us talking
Exactly.
about him.
How
That's fair.
does that work that way? I mean, honestly, the title of the show is about the primaries being like the WWE. Like, that's what politics are now. I don't love it. I wish it was a little more about substance, but like for right now, in some ways, like you gotta play the game that's put in front of you.
But I
And
guess I project. I guess
I-
that's
yeah,
what I'm
that's
doing. Maybe I'm
true.
projecting.
Maybe
Because
you
like I
are.
feel like I could have handled it with so much more grace. And it's just like,
And-
dude, and got the same point across. You know what I mean?
But you wouldn't have gotten the headlines. This man's running for president.
That's true. You got to get the headlines.
And this is just what it is now. I don't like it. I'm not saying I like it. I hate that's
But you get
what
it.
our politics. I
But
get
you
it.
Get it.
I-
Yeah.
I hate that it's what our politics has devolved to. And I will say this, as much as I hate it, I love the way that Vivek Ramaswamy, I mean, he speaks well. Can we acknowledge that? Like the way
Yeah,
he
he's slick.
speaks, he speaks. I mean, we do a fucking podcast and we would never dream of speaking as well as he speaks. He is well-spoken Trump. And because of that, I feel like there's a place for him. Would I give Vivek Ramaswamy my vote? In a very limited circumstance, I might, but most likely no. I don't trust him. I think he's a little bit full of shit. I hate his foreign policy, but I don't care about that right now. What I care about right now is getting the message of like, dude, stop listening to this gotcha media bullshit. That's the whole point of even playing the clips that we played.
That's fair. But as evidence shows, the American people could give two shits about that because he's just tanking in the polls.
I mean, it's fine. And he knows that. But if he's getting
you know what
people
he's honestly, you
talking-
know what he's doing, honestly? You know what I think he's doing? I think he's trying to vie for the VP position.
I don't even know if it's that, Corey. I actually think it might even be simpler than that. And this may be a hot take. This may be the first time anybody's heard this. But I think part of it might be trying to get out the right message of like, hey, the media's full of shit, while just building his celebrity. Can it just be that simple? Can he just be trying to build his celebrity a little bit?
Trying to build his brand.
Because he's going to be
did
able
just
to
have a
make
book
money
come
off
out.
of this. He's going to be able to make money off of this stuff. I don't even hate it. I don't hate it. He's doing a good job. 10 years ago, I would have hated it. But now in today's landscape, I just don't as much. Doesn't bother me. Make your paper, boo.
We're numb to
however
it.
However you got to make it. And if you're also delivering the right message at the same time, at least partially the right message in the same time, because he says a lot of the right things. It's the same way I feel about RFK. Do I love his stance on Israel? No. Don't love his stance on Israel.
Terrible.
It's terrible.
fun-
Terrible stance on Israel.
Fun fact. Actually, no, that's not the word I want to use. Fun fact is pretty uncouth. In the
Not so
statement I'm
fun
about to
fact?
make. Yeah, not so fun fact. Sad fact. Roughly 10 kids a day are losing limbs in Israel.
Gaza.
Yeah, in Gaza. Well, I mean, is Gaza? I don't, dude. That just goes.
Depends
to
who
show
you
Gaza,
ask. It doesn't
yeah,
matter. Depends who you
Gaza
ask.
is a part of Israel. It's just its own little open air prison for the Gazans. And
Got to be careful who you say that around even.
yeah, like, well, I got receipts. I could point it to them. Like, you know, Israel didn't deserve to get attacked on October 7th, but they also shouldn't be treating everyone else like shit. So
So I guess to end the show, Bell's got something to say, but before I let him in here, I'm gonna say this. There's gonna be, I would say 50% of people that listen to this episode. If you've made it this far, then you're gonna know then you're gonna understand what I'm saying. There's gonna be like 50% of people that listen to this episode that somehow think we're Vivek Ramaswamy supporters now.
maybe you at least.
You think that's true?
You at least.
Yeah, I guess me. Yeah,
I'm about to
Yeah,
write my own fucking name in again. Fuck it.
just because he says
20
some of the right things must mean that I support him. But
No,
Bell's got
like I
something
said,
he wanted to end the show
that's what
with.
frustrates me is I think he is saying the right thing, but his arrogance with it, the message is getting lost in the medium.
Not always doing it in good faith. I can agree with that. Bell, what do you have for us to end the show?
Well, I just want to say that the U.S.
I'm
and
just
the
happy to be here.
the U.S. and the U.K. are hinting at military action after shooting down 21 drones and missiles over the Red Sea. 18 drones, 2 cruise missiles, and 1 ballistic missile were shot down by F-18s, and 7 of the drones were shot down with Sea Viper missiles, and those cost upwards of $1.3 million each. And with that being said, I want you to take those tax refund reminders seriously and remind you that tax season is coming up.
Hey, can I write that off? Boy, you know what? I also, you know what? Someone should really let the Secretary of Defense know what's going on right now.
Hey, you know what? If the Air Force can write off $1,200 coffee cups because they're metal, and I think we should. I think we should be able to write this stuff off.
I'm going to say this. If Joe Biden really believes that engaging in more military action is a way for him to get reelected in 2024, he is even more out of touch than I could have ever even imagined he is, even with his senile ass.
Dude, I cannot.
Is that fair?
Fucking warmonger, man. When Trump was president, we had no wars. I mean, there wasn't any new
67
wars.
Corvette.
This guy has gotten us into just sponsoring 2 fucking wars. What the fuck? Yes.
That's all. That's all I had, folks. That's all.
No, that's good. Good way.
Replace
good way
the ba 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 da 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 da. Replace that with
the Benny Hill.
Oh, okay. So RFK right now, according to YouGov, has a 51% favorability rate.
We just back off on the Israel shit.
Yeah, like I don't know how many times.
Don't get bogged down by all the haters out there.
We'll save that for next week. Santos. Okay, we'll talk about RFK next week.
Tell the people where they can find us, Corey.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today.
Go blue for Bell the Bodysnatcher on the 1s and 2s. He as always has been Corey Walsh.
He's been Dan Griffin.
This has been Libservative. And until next time, we are out of here.
We are national champions.
Hell yeah. Go blue.